Welcome back to the Calculated Risk Podcast. I am Tyler Shoemaker, joined as always by Kelly Ford, and week 10 was a banger. It lived up to the hype. We were so excited talking about that going into the week, and it did not disappoint. Kelly, I have two TVs in my setup. I don't have anything nearly as great as your setup. My second TV was like being super glitchy, so I wasn't even able to turn it on. So I was flipping back and forth, like old school, flipping back and forth between Alabama, LSU, and USC, Washington, and both of those games delivered. Those were really good games. Obviously, Washington, USC was especially a shootout. Just crazy. I mean, big wins, big losses, big emotional losses, and we saw the emotion of Caleb Williams after that game. What were your initial takeaways from this week? Because we saw quite a bit of just college football craziness that we crave.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler, I tweeted on Saturday morning. I was like, this slate, I think my words were, it's an absolute banger. And then after the early window, I like quote tweeted that and said, it was an understatement. Like, we're only through one window, and absolute banger does not do justice to what we just saw, because Kansas State, Texas, great game. Texas A&M, Ole Miss, great game. Notre Dame, Clemson, great game. Arkansas, Florida, overtime game. Like Ohio State, Rutgers, that was a game at halftime into the fourth quarter. Really, like all 5 games that I had on in the early window ended up being really good games. Then you flash forward to the afternoon. Of course, you got Bedlam, and Oklahoma State takes down Oklahoma, and who knows when the next time we're going to see that game is. It was a great game. Missouri and Georgia was a good game for the majority of that game. Missouri certainly not a pushover. We've seen teams go into Athens with, a chance to take over the East, and it didn't go well. This game, it was a good one, and Missouri was in there with a fighter's chance. LSU, Alabama, of course, in the nightcap was awesome. I know Alabama kind of pulled away there at the end, but still just two Titans. Absolutely loved it. If you like offense, Washington, USC, like Tyler, it was such a fun day, and it went well into Pac-12 After Dark, into our daylight savings bonus hour. I even tweeted about that too. I was like, no other way I'd rather spend my bonus hour here than watching college football with Pac-12 After Dark. It was such a great day from beginning to end, and I do think, like, looking back on the whole day, the early window, it's tough to beat 5-6 games, ending within a few minutes of each other that were all that close and that good. But the primetime heavyweights of LSU, Alabama, Washington, USC, of course, was incredible. And then Bedlam in between. Like, I don't know, man. It was, I think, the best college football Saturday that we've had of 2023. We still have a few more to go, so it could be topped. But to me, the early window was the best single window of the season. And Saturday as a whole, I think, was my favorite Saturday so far.
Yeah, I agree. There was just a lot going on. Every slate, every time spot had just great games. It was really fun to watch. It was exciting. After that noon slate, it was like, oh my God, we still have the afternoon and the evening slates. Like it's awesome. So yeah, that was probably my favorite college football Saturday so far. I can't wait to get into our show later this week, looking ahead to week 11, because I think we're finally going to find out a little bit about Michigan, some other teams. So I'm looking forward to talking about that. In the meantime, let's get to how week 10 impacted the K Ford ratings and the TSI in terms of our power ratings. First, Michigan's still number 1 for both of us. Oregon, for me, did jump up to number 2. They jumped over Ohio State. We have the same top 4. Penn State up there at number 4 for both of us. Oklahoma, I mean, they're still number 5 for me. I was like, okay, if they don't drop to at least 5, I'm going to lose it with my numbers, because that is a true love story right there, the TSI and Oklahoma. So Oklahoma's still number 5 for me. Rounding out my top 10, I have Florida State 6, Notre Dame 7, Kansas State 8, above slightly by I think 2/10. I didn't put the actual ratings on there, but I think they're like 2/10 of a point ahead of Texas at number 9. And Georgia rounds out the top 10. So Kelly, I'll let you kind of run through yours, and then we'll just kind of talk through some discrepancies that we might have here.
Yeah, my top three stay the same: Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon. Penn State up a spot to number 4, as you mentioned. I've got Alabama made a little bit of a move this week. They're up to number 5 for me. Florida State dropped a couple spots to number 6. Really nothing, that bad of what Florida State did. It's just, Penn State and Alabama looked good against good opponents, so they jump up above them. Georgia, despite, a ranked win. We're going to hear about that from the committee here this week and why that potentially is going to catapult Georgia to number 1 in the committee's rankings because they picked up this really good ranked win. Their power rating didn't change for me at all. Their ranking actually fell 1 spot to number 7 because of the movement of teams around them. Texas, again, great win that Texas got. Their power rating, though, came down slightly. They're now number 8 for me. LSU falls, but not far, to number 9, and Oklahoma holds steady in the number 10 spot. Their rating, of course, was hurt, but nobody did enough behind them to jump up above the Sooners. So I still have Oklahoma at number 10 as well. So that's my top 10, Tyler. Again, at this point in the season, I've said it, for almost a month now, changes happen. And you're going to see that every single week, and you're going to get unexpected results. And that's going to cause, shifts of 2, 3, 3.5 points in any given week for any given team. But we're pretty solid at this point in terms of what is your team, what can we expect from you moving forward, and we're not going to see a ton of shakeups in the ratings, and the corresponding rankings for those in the power rating world, at least for the K Ford rating model, as we're entering mid-November here almost.
Yeah, the interesting thing as I'm looking at it, I realized, like I said, I forgot to put the actual ratings on my graphics. So I apologize for that if you're watching on YouTube. But one thing that is kind of jumping out, so from a ranking standpoint, I've got Kansas State number 8. You've got them number 12, but our rating on them is almost identical. I've got them 19.7. You've got them 19.8. So our ratings are very similar. Like you've got Notre Dame number 11. I've got them number 7. But I've got them with a 19.9 rating. You've got them 19.8. So our ratings are very, very similar. Some of these teams are just in a little bit different order, and that's generally like literally decimal points that separate those ranking numbers. But yeah, I think from a rating standpoint, we're pretty aligned on most of these. Obviously, we've talked about we're going to have some discrepancies on G5, just based on how our formulas are set up. But otherwise, I'm glad to see Duke kind of falling down my ratings a little bit, and that's another team that has been really high in my ratings for a while. I'm glad it seems that the model's kind of catching up to them, just not. Well, especially now that Riley Leonard is like legitimately hurt. I expect them to continue to tumble down. Clemson, as you mentioned, got a nice win. You've got them with a 12.8 rating. I've got them 10.2. So a little bit different there on the Tigers. Are you buying stock in them? You better buy all the freaking stock you can, Kelly, because Dabo said.
So I that game was on one of my TVs. The sound wasn't on it though, and I saw as soon as the game ends and the clock hits 0 and the score bug updates to final and changes the records, I usually flip it. I was in the process of flipping the channel to something else, and I saw them interviewing Dabo, and I was like, you know what? I'm still going to just change it. I'll come back and hear the clip at some point later. So yes, I heard the clip probably 3 or 4 times throughout Saturday during various, commercial breaks, half times, cut-ins, whatever it was. So yeah, hey, I had them power rating number 20 last week. They're number 19 this week. From a power rating standpoint, Clemson, they didn't go anywhere from the national stage. They're not in the top 5 like Clemson has been for much of the past decade, right? And we've known that for most of this year. I think they came into this year for me number 7 or number 8, somewhere in that range, and so they've fallen since then pretty consistently. But from a power rating standpoint, like Dabo wasn't talking to us earlier this week. He was talking, I think, to people like fans that aren't viewing the game through a power rating lens, which is fine. It takes all kinds, and power ratings aren't the end all be all. We've talked about that before. But then also from a ranking standpoint, a resume ranking, a most deserving ranking, Clemson's resume is not up to snuff with where they've been. And so again, that's another conversation, and a great win against Notre Dame, a good power rated team who I have number 11, you have number 7. So that's going to do wonders for their resume ranking or for their most deserving ranking. But yeah, buy all the stock you can or you want, as Dabo said. I still have concerns about the Clemson program long term and Dabo's approach to the new college football world. And He doesn't have to change. He's won 2 national championships. They should build him a statue. They should name the field after him probably at some point when he's done. He doesn't have to change. But if he doesn't change his approach, it just we might see this type of season for Clemson more often than we see a 2016 or a 2018 season that ends in a national championship. Like it really could be that simple. So yeah, buy all the stock you want. Hey, from a power rating standpoint, Clemson's going to be in the top 10, top 15 next preseason. Like I'll tell you that right now, they're going to be. And they could end up having a great year and win the ACC next year, or they could have another year where they lose 4 games. It'll all depend on, how they're able to progress and what changes he makes, if any, to his approach.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. Nothing else really jumps out. SMU is a team that my number's been high on. They're kind of just sitting there in that 15 to 20 range for me here over the last month or so. Their quarterback did get knocked out of the game late in that game against Rice, so that's kind of something to keep an eye on, from a betting perspective moving forward. You mentioned Missouri. I thought they gave Georgia all they could handle. I was kind of flipping back and forth, had that game on as much as I could. That they were able to move the ball, get some scores on Georgia, so that was good. I think Georgia's a really good team. Obviously, I've got them power rated number 10. I think they're a really good team. You mentioned the CFP rankings, and I've pretty much prepared myself that Georgia's going to be number 1 by the time people hear this tonight, Tuesday night. It's fine if they win out, if they win the SEC, they're going to be in. They deserve to be in. No problem with that. I just don't. There's not a single metric or rating that I look at that would indicate that is the case for them, that they should be that high. So that's my only beef. I won't get on my soapbox again with that, but that's my only complaint right now is just Georgia being as highly rated as they are. They beat a good Missouri team by 9 at home. Great. They didn't cover the spread. They didn't meet expectation from a performance standpoint. So that's a good win. I'm not saying like Georgia fans should be upset about that by any means. That's a great win. But from a rating, like when we're trying to figure out who the best teams are, that has to matter. And that's a solid win that I don't think says like, oh my God, well they got to be number 1 now. So, but I'm prepared for that Tuesday night. So just something that I'm going to have my eye on. Kelly, anything else from a power rating standpoint here before we get to our updated resume and most deserving rankings?
It's a ranked win, Tyler. Come on, show some respect for the ranked wins over here. You're going to hear about it. I'm saying that as a joke, of course. To me, the 2 things that I feel like I caught some flack on were TCU. I still have TCU number 28. Their power rating is down this week, but their ranking actually went up a spot. So they're number 28. People are saying, how many times does TCU have to lose before they fall out of your top 30? I'll remind you, they could lose every single game. And if they're playing the best 2, 3, 4, 5 teams in the country and they're losing by 1 point, they're probably not going to fall out of the top 30. It has nothing to do with wins and losses in the power rating world. So until TCU stops playing like a top 30 team for me, they'll continue to be in there. And then another one that I got was Arizona. How can you not have Arizona in the top 30? Is something that I was getting. And you do, Tyler, you have them there at 27. If I look at mine, I have Arizona currently number 31. So that's another one that people were mad about, and they're number 31. It bothers me sometimes that I have to cut it off somewhere. I make the graphic of the 133. I do the whole 133, but I do think there's some value in showing the movement of the top X, and I just do 30 because it's 3 columns of 10, and I think it looks nice. So, yeah. Sorry, Arizona fans, you're moving up, but you're just 1 spot away. Those were the ones for me, Tyler. But yeah, other than that, again, power ratings at this point of the season, they're in a spot where they kind of are what they are, and you're going to see changes, but they won't be drastic. And the more interesting thing for me, as it always is, but now we're in November, so it's absolutely relevant, is what do these power ratings translate to when you use them to generate your resume or most deserving rankings?
Yep, certainly. And so for me, I still have the same top 3 from last week. Ohio State number 1, Florida State number 2, Washington number 3, Michigan number 4. So last week I mentioned I had Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma kind of in a back-to-back, and I manually adjusted those. I think at this point in the season, I'm comfortable. The more I thought about it, Alabama and Texas have the same record. Alabama's strength of schedule, by my numbers, their average opponent power rating is 5.7. Texas's is 4.3. Margin of victory similar. I think I'm okay with leaving Alabama one spot ahead of Texas. If you want to argue and tell me that I'm an idiot on that, like, I'll listen to that. I certainly understand the justification. I think at this point we're far enough removed from the head-to-head result that, like, sure, Texas is getting credit for beating a team with Alabama's power rating on the road. That's baked in. It just, the way the numbers work is Texas gets credit for beating a team with Alabama's profile on the road. It's not the jersey says Texas and the jersey says Alabama. It's just they beat a team with this profile on the road. They're getting credit for that. That's baked in. Alabama's getting credit for their resume. Their resume came out higher. So I've got Alabama 5, Texas 6, Georgia 7, Ole Miss 8, James Madison, who pounded away at Georgia State, number 9, and Penn State, number 10. So that's my top 10 from a resume standpoint.
A lot of the same teams, Tyler. I think we've got one or two differences here. My top 10 remains largely the same. I have 9 of the same top 10 teams. 7 of them are the exact same spot they were a week ago. My top 3 remain unchanged, same as yours. Ohio State, Florida State, Washington. That's my 1, 2, 3. That's what I think the committee should do. It's certainly not what the committee will do. We've seen that already, and we didn't see anything this past weekend that's going to change the committee's mind on that. But that's what I would do if I was a committee member and try to persuade my colleagues on the committee. At number 4, the most deserving rankings say it should be Alabama, and I have Texas number 5. So those two are flipped from a week ago due to Alabama. It was very, very close last week. I had a 1.000 in the number 4 spot, as I always do, and a 0.999 in the number 5 spot. The closest I've ever seen a 4 and a 5 since I've been doing this. Now Alabama gets the 1.00 as the number 4 team. Texas is 0.992. So the home win against LSU, put together with the rest of this of the schedule, the rest of the resume to date, was just a little bit more impressive than Texas adding its home win against Kansas State. And so Alabama jumps them to number 4. I said when I tweeted it out, I'm totally cool if you want to flip those two and honor the head-to-head there, because no other team is impacted. And I stand by that. Like, I understand people like, Kelly, no, you're objective. The numbers already account for it. And kind of what you said, Tyler. It's not about the team. It's about the profile. Like, agreed. Deep down inside me, and this is like not the number side, this is just like the human side. Deep down inside me, I do like to see the result on the field, the head-to-head matchup, be honored if it can without affecting anything else. And if I flip 4 and 5 here, I'm not affecting any other team, and I'm honoring a head-to-head game where Texas, I mean, no less Texas won on the road. I mean, again, that's not like a bonus point or anything. That's already baked in, as you said, to the numbers. But I like to honor that if I can. And so again, I put out what the numbers say, because that's kind of what I believe in is, hey, this is the numbers, and I don't doctor them at all. Here's what they say. My personal opinion is I'd flip these two because that's my preference. People can like it, they can dislike it. This is what the numbers say. Do with it what you will. Same thing with the power ratings. Number 6 is Ole Miss. They stay the same. Number 7 is Georgia. They stay in the same spot. Number 8 is Penn State. Penn State actually moves up 4 spots from number 12. Just a dominating win against Maryland. They're up to number 8. Michigan holds steady at 9, and Oregon at number 10 stays in their place. So the only changes in my top 10, Alabama and Texas flip 4 and 5. Michigan's up into number 8, and Oklahoma fell down to number 16. You mentioned James Madison. I have them number 11 this week, Tyler. Last week I think you had them at 11 maybe, and I was like, man, that's like really high for James Madison. I had him at 16 a week ago, but now they're number 11 for me. I mean, what James Madison's doing is, it's unfortunate that they're doing it this year instead of next, I guess, is the only way I could say it, because they'd be eligible for these rankings. They'd be eligible for a New Year's 6. They'd be eligible. Well, next year they'll be eligible for the 12-team CFP. I mean, this would potentially be the team that gets in from the group of 5 ranks. So that's who I have at 11. Only other flips that I have as I go down the board here, Missouri for me is number 14. LSU is number 15. You could flip those two if you want to honor the head-to-head. LSU at 15 is my highest 3-loss team. A couple people are saying, you got to get that 3-loss team out of there. There's no way a 3-loss team deserves to be in the top 20 or the top 15. I'm just saying, look at the teams that LSU has lost to. Not their most deserving ranking. I don't care. We don't care about that. That doesn't matter. But they've lost to Alabama on the road, who I have power rated, what I say, number 6. They lost to Florida State at a neutral site in Orlando. So in Florida State's backyard, a Florida State team that I have power rated number 5. So Alabama's power rated 6, Alabama's 5, Florida State's number 6. And then the other loss that LSU has is to Ole Miss, who I have power rated number 15. So, I mean, they've lost 3 games. You show me the team that plays that schedule and has better than a 6-3 record. And I'll tell you, they probably are power rated near the very top, and they have a most deserving ranking in the top 10. I mean, it's just, I understand they have 3 losses, but I'm not a committee member. I don't just say, 3 losses. Okay, you're up down below all the 1 and 2 loss teams. Like, that's just not how we should be doing this. So that's why I have it 15. I'd also flip Oklahoma and Kansas. They're 16 and 17 for me. I could flip those and honor head to head. But Liberty sneaks in at number 23. They're 9-0 now. They're up to 23, and Tulane, the other G5, getting a lot of love. I actually have them down to 27 this week. So that's kind of a high level top 10 and then high level top 30 various teams. Arizona, a big mover, up to number 24. Oklahoma State winning Bedlam up to number 20 for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. Liberty's been high for me. I mean, their strength of schedule just sucks so bad. Their
It's
average
the worst.
opponent,
It's the worst. It's the worst in FBS.
Their average opponent power rating is -7.2, which, I mean, you know, we talk about like Michigan's schedule, for instance. Michigan's average opponent power rating is -1.5. So Michigan's played a team basically 5 points better than Liberty on an average week so far this year. So their schedule just bad, but undefeated. They're number 11 for me. The team that just taking my rankings at face value and not really looking at the numbers and just looking at the names and what they're ranked, like I've got Oregon number 12. And then when I like their strength of schedule, their average opponent power rating is -2.6. So worse than Michigan's. So like that's kind of holding them down, which again, to just as a reminder, like I count the FCS games that teams play and things like that. They played Portland State earlier in the season. Kelly, I would assume you are the same way now that you've got FCS numbers, but I know some models and some like ranking systems throw out FCS games when evaluating schedules and power ratings and things like that. And that's fine. Like if you don't have the data, you don't have the data, but man, to just throw out the fact that this team played an FCS team, like I don't think that does the rankings any justice.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of the reasons that I was so excited to do the FCS Light model this year was not so that I could generate a projected spread between any FBS and FCS team. Like, cool. I'm glad I can do that now, and that's good. But really what I wanted to do is, okay, I'm evaluating resumes, especially early in the season when there's fewer games and maybe you've played, 2 games and one's an FCS. Like, how do I evaluate those resumes at that point when it's 50% of your resume? Playing FCS South Dakota State is different than playing FCS Elon, which is different than playing FCS Presbyterian, which is different than playing FCS Montana State. Like, those teams are different and the quality of those teams are different. And so by having an FCS Light model or by having FCS numbers, you can more accurately try to assign credit to various wins against FCS opponents. And so for me, that was the most exciting thing about having the FCS Light model is I can now do that more accurately. And that helps holistically when it comes to evaluating resumes. And again, by this point in the season, where most teams have played 9 games, some have played 10, most teams play 9 games. If you have an FCS on your schedule, that's 1/9 of your resume. So at this point, it's only accounting for 11% of your resume. So that weight is being devalued every single week because you're adding in other games and every single individual data point is less and less in terms of weight. So it matters less and less the deeper we get, but it still matters. And if you're, I don't have the numbers right here in front of me to do this exercise, but it's possible that somewhere, and it's likely that somewhere, if not in the top 10, then in the top 30, I've got a different order by 1 spot. Teams have flipped because of how I'm treating FCS this year, instead of just all equal, like because I'm assigning the different weights, that's made a difference in the rankings, even at this point. So that's good. And again, if you don't have the numbers, you don't have the numbers, and there's nothing wrong with ignoring FCS data or games. But if you can account for them, I think it's best practice because you only get 12 regular season games in most cases, plus maybe a conference championship to try to evaluate a resume. So we're dealing with limited data to begin with. I do everything I can to capture as much of it as possible.
Yeah, I mean, just to put a bow on that thought, I've got South Dakota State, FCS South Dakota State, power rated number 31. They're by far the highest power rated FCS. I don't have any other FCS teams even remotely close. But South Dakota State is 1/10 of a point power rated higher than Miami, Florida, and Tulane, and 0.6 higher than Oklahoma State. So, like, if you took the names off the jerseys and said this team played Oklahoma State rather than South Dakota State, like, that changes the perception in a big way. So, just keeping that into perspective of not all FCS teams were created equal, and how that impacts the resume. So, no, I love doing these comparisons. I've said many times you're the best in the business at the most deserving the resume rankings. Mine is a work in progress, but happy to see we have a ton of overlap there. Quick question: Where do you have Iowa? I have them 18.
Yeah, I have Iowa. They were 26 last week. Now they're 25. I'm curious, Tyler. Is the committee going to rank Iowa? Like, they're a 2-loss. They're a 2-loss Power 5 team. At this point in the season, that to me is the type of record and tier classification that the committee typically ranks. And I'm suggesting they should at number 25, and you have them even higher at number 18. The stigma around the offense is so potent. Like, it's so bad.
It's a stigma, but it's a well-deserved stigma.
No, it's not undeserved. That's part of this equation is the offense is really, really bad. And because it's so bad, and because so much has been made of, the drive for 23-25 or whatever it was, and now, of course, that contract won't be renewed. But with all the attention it's gotten, all the hubbub about that offense, it's almost like, will they do it? Like, I don't know. Do they have the guts to rank them? Like, we'll see. I think they should. I think they might, because they're 7-2 and they're a Big Ten team.
Yeah,
they're a Big Ten team at 7-2.
Remind me, was Kansas ranked in the initial rankings last week? I believe they were.
I think they were number 21. I'm pulling it up real quick. The CFP had 21. Yep.
Yeah, I thought Kansas was ranked. So I have Iowa 18, Kansas 19, and their resumes are damn near identical. I mean, strength of schedule is virtually the same, margin of victory virtually the same record, and Iowa plays in a better conference. So I don't understand why you would. I get that Iowa doesn't have a win like as flashy as Kansas beating Oklahoma, but when you look at the totality of the resume, I think Iowa should be ranked. All right, well, that tasted sour coming out of my mouth, but all right, Kelly, I think that's going to do it for us here today. Do you have any final thoughts, or are you good to wrap up and move on to week 11?
All good, man. Week 11 is going to be awesome. Can't wait to see what the committee does. I'm sure I'll have some thoughts about it. But yeah, it'll be fun to see. And week 11 will be here, and I can't wait to talk about it because we got some really, really big games, and it's just another great college football Saturday coming up.
Yep, we will be back on Thursday to preview week 11. Maybe give some quick thoughts on what the committee did or didn't do with the second set of rankings. Most notably, where's Georgia going to fall as far as I'm concerned. So we'll see about that. Until then, make sure you follow Kelly on X at KFord Ratings. Follow me at TShoeIndex. For Kelly Ford, I'm Tyler Shoemaker, and that was Calculated Risk.